My dog asked to be let out, like right as I was about to get it. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
This is one of those. It's the end of the weekend, and so rushing around to get everything on. And welcome back to everybody who is watching live on Twitter and on YouTube. So excited to have everybody here for another SPFBOX panel or the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off 10th year. We're doing panel interviews. This is not the 10th year doing the interviews. This is only the second. But if you have not been following, there's a whole playlist. This is actually our 6th panel over the weekend. We have over 75 authors who are going to be coming on between yesterday and next Saturday. So you could go get the panel playlist and catch up on the ones you missed, subscribe to ones you want to see more of. But I think this is my first time meeting everybody on this call, except Casey. I couldn't remember if I've done one with you or not.
I've never done this.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about our books and about SPFBO and how we got sucked into doing this. I'm going to let you kick us off, Claire. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience with SPFBO, and the book you entered.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Trella-Hill. I write gothic romance and romantic fantasy. I am based in Texas, and I have a cat named Adorabelle Deerheart for any Discworld fans out there. She may make an appearance. She may not. We'll see. But I had been aware of SPFBO since maybe like 2020 or 2021. I think the one of the few good things about COVID was kind of a focus on online community, and so I started meeting a lot of authors online. And one author that I became pretty good friends with was doing SPFBO that year, and so we were like, oh, like, what is that? And she kindly explained it to us, and we were like cheering her on. And so I've been just kind of generally aware of it since that time, and kind of like, oh, cool. What books are on offer this year? Okay, cool. Like hop back on in, several months and be like, oh, what books made it so far? But this is the first year that I've actually been able to do it because my debut novel came out in September of last year. So this is the first opportunity I've had to do it. And the lotto situation for this year was like, oh, cool. Kind of takes some of the anxiety away because like if I get in, I get in, and if I don't, I don't. And just kind of very, very humbled and grateful to have gotten in at all. So yeah. The book, that's the important thing. The book, I decided to do my debut novel, which is called Black and Deep Desires. It is a gothic vampire romance, grappling with the age-old question of, is the vampire in my cellar a person that I can save or a monster out for blood? And also, how do I get him to stop quoting Shakespeare at me all the time? So yeah, I just kind of dug in for the age-old urge to run around in a long flowing nightie on the moors, and just poured it all into the book.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice to see some classic, sort of that gothic spin on vampire romance again. Yeah, like vampire romance got harder and harder to write there for a little bit because so many people were writing urban, so it's nice to see that spin.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know, when we come back, we've been asking everybody what their strategy is, but I'm really interested in yours, since you've been sort of lurking and watching how this all works the last few years, as opposed to last year. I found out about it like 2 weeks before, and my friends are like, just do it. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know that I've got one, but I'll think about it.
Yeah, we're going to come back to it. For sure. Jana, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you and your experience with SPFBO and your book.
Hi. Congratulations for your debut novel. That's really cool. I'm originally from Germany, but I'm living in New Zealand, so as far away from home as I could possibly be. and also like a day in the future. Well, I've been writing since I've published my first one in 2017, so I've been around a little bit. I've published in English since 2020, COVID, with a COVID project. So, I live here with 3 kids, 3 boys, 3 bunnies, more boys in there. So, with my overgrowing fern tree. So, very, very on topic in New Zealand. I write urban fantasy. I also have like dark fantasy. I plan to publish dark fantasy next year. And I have a love affair with contemporary coming of age stories. So eventually, sometimes I skip one in. I totally lost track of what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. So the book you entered this year.
I guess, yeah. Oh, yeah, my experience. That's it. That was the other point first. So I actually haven't heard of it until last year when a friend of mine, Chris Rowan, I think he was one of the finalists in the end. So I followed him through his journey and cheered him on, and just got curious about what this even is. And then I saw the call this year pretty much spontaneously, and I was like, oh, might just enter. So I know we're going to talk about strategy later, but it's like I have no idea there is even a strategy. So I'm very curious to see what other people say and learn more about how this actually works. So my book that I entered.
Like every panel has had different things to throw in, which is nice because it's like, oh, if I keep tuning in, I'll come up with bigger and better grab bags for next year.
Yeah. So the book I've entered is Ghosts of the Catacombs, which is the first of my Parisian Ghost series. And that one came out last September. And so far the series has 3 books. And I'm got the 4th one due in July, and I've just started writing, which makes me a bit nervous about this, but it's still possible. So the book is about Alix, who is a history student and who can see ghosts. And so she works at the Pantheon. She's best friends with Victor Hugo, Voltaire, Marie Curie. So you have all these famous people that are buried in Paris popping up, and they ask her for favors. And so one of those favors gets her down to the catacombs, which, as you might know, you have like these creepy pictures of all the bones set up. But the catacombs are actually much bigger, like they're under half of Paris, and they have really cool rooms, like they're illegal to go into, that too. I haven't been in there. So but they have really cool rooms like the Boutique of Psychosis or the Monastery of Bears, where it's like, this just screams urban fantasy. So it's a really, really easy setting to write on. And I'm having lots of fun with it. My fans, they love this one here. Alix has a little pet hedgehog, and she's my social media star. She is just running the whole show. I don't know. When you ask for pre-orders and you get like some crickets, this hedgehog asks for pre-orders, and everyone is like, yes, she deserves all the pre-orders. So I can recommend cute familiars. So yeah,
from now on, it's like nothing goes out without the hedgehog seal of approval.
Yeah, pretty much. I already had her take over my page while I was at a con, so.
I love that so much. That is so cute. Oh, so does the character have a hedgehog? That's what I want to know. Is she carrying around a hedgehog in the catacombs?
She does. She does take Malou with her. She has like a little leash, and and Malou is very instrumental at the end to get her safely out of there. So I'm not going to spoil how, but yeah. She has her role.
Sold. Take my money, Jenna. Because of the hedgehog in the catacomb. That is something I have never read in 10 years of editing books. That's awesome. Oh, goodness. Speaking of cool ways to engage with social media, Tam, we talked about this before we came on. Your hat is awesome.
Thank you. I'll show off the one that I usually wear, but I can't wear it with the headphones.
Awesome. Yeah.
I am Tam Cronin.
In your books.
Yes, I am Tam Cronin. I in my author bio, I introduced myself as a figment of the imagination. That's an in-joke going back to when I was 16, and I was dating a guy who nobody believed he could land someone as hot as I was. My book is Elemental. I put it out back in 2017, so it's one of the older ones. I have 4 books in the series, but this is the first one, and it is the story of a boy who is born with the powers of a goddess, and the other wizards in the world are hunting him down because of that power. 300 years prior, the wizards had killed and stolen the powers from the gods. So that's why they're looking for him. It is LBGT themed. It's very trans heavy, so not much of that I've seen so far.
Good to see representation, though. Like last year, we had a couple LGBTQ books make it to the finals, and I was like, wow. Between Arrival, Vile, and then I think Connor's was too.
Okay. I'm really excited to see how far this goes. It is my first book, so I'm a little nervous because the later books in the series are much better. I heard about the competition a few years ago, and I just kept never entering. I didn't have the self-confidence to do it. And this year I'm like, well, it's a lottery. I technically won't be stealing a better spot. So
that's right. It was meant to be. This is your year. You know, I love that we've got the brand new, so the excitement of a debut novel, and then we've also got the security of having a book that's older because you know that the series is still being written or the writer's still writing. And it can be hard. I say this as a writer with 3 series that are all going. I know sometimes readers are like, are you going to finish it? You're not going to leave me hanging with nothing like George R. R. Martin, right?
Right. I've got 2 books that I'm working on. The last 2 books I'm working on right now. So they are coming out.
Awesome. So good to have you. So good to have your book in this year with us. And Casey, how about you? Is this your first time dipping your toes into the SPFBO pool?
It is. So this is my first year hearing of it. I'm more familiar with the science fiction one because in my critique partner group, one of them was the runner-up last year, and then the other was one of the judges. And so I think I knew in the back of my mind that there was like a fantasy equivalent, and I was like, I should try and shoot my shot with that. But I thought it was like an invite only kind of thing. I thought it was very exclusive. And so when I found out it was like a lottery, I was like, okay. So I shot my shot, as they say. Here I am. And then I was really shocked to get in. I felt bad because there are so many authors who like have been dreaming about this or have known about this for a lot longer, and then I just like applied last minute and got in. So I do feel very, very grateful to be a part of it. Let me grab my book that I entered.
I love those bookshelves.
It's really awesome.
It has been
wrapped around bookshelf. Oh.
I know the other half that isn't showing is actually, well, it is showing. We'll just kind of scoot that. It's full of junk, so it's all the like fun things I haven't found a spot for yet. This is my book, Dawn of the Darkest Day. It is also my debut novel. It is my only novel, as they say. It is the first in a series, so I am working on the next 2 books right now, just kind of simultaneously. And the long and short of it is that it's the story of the descendant of the goddess who's forced to marry an immortal god king tyrant, very much Lord Ruler from Mistborn-esque. And her ex-fiance who is trying to rescue her. and she bargains her firstborn in exchange for her freedom, her yet to be conceived firstborn. So,
Wow.
yeah, that is it. It's a dark fantasy with obviously a lot of romantic elements, and it's meant to be 4 books in the whole series.
So the first book is about her more than the firstborn, right?
Yeah, no, the firstborn is being conceived in book 1.
Got it.
So if you
I was
like
like,
spice, there is a decent amount of that in there.
bring on some spice up in here. This is the 7:30 panel.
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness. So we have a wide variety represented here, which is really exciting. And just in general, SPFBO this year is a huge variety. Last year was the last year that Mark had first come first serve entries for SPFBO. So we had to be up. I think it was like 3:30 in the morning my time. I had to be up, ready with everything going, and then the slots all filled up in like 40 minutes. So the lottery system this year was sort of that breather. And I was worried at first because I was like, oh, if someone had to be up at 3:30 in the morning to submit their book, you can be pretty sure that they will have read the rules forward and backward, that they're going to be, a good fit for this. And I wasn't sure if when we did the 24 hours, it was going to be a lot more disqualified. But actually, we ended up with a pretty fair amount of exchanges, like similar to last year. I think in the end, 11 people swapped. So if that's right, I'm not sure if Mark's watching, but so it's good to see it on. But I was bringing that up to say I agree. I felt sort of guilty at first, like should I enter this year or not? I was in it last year and I got cut pretty early on, but still had a good time with it. But I was like, is there another author who could benefit from this more? Am I stealing a spot from them? And I like how my friends were saying, with the lottery system, you put it in and you just see what happens. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, no pressure. You can try again next year, go on and do other things. So I definitely think you're meant to be here, Casey, is what it all boils down to. So don't feel guilty. Your book is just as deserving as anybody else's book in this spot. So I hope that everybody here goes a long, long way. And speaking of a long way, it sounds like is it everybody's first year except for mine here. Yeah. So have you seen the blogs you're in? Do you know whose blog you're in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what blog you're in. Have you researched a whole lot on them? How do you feel about where you are?
Well, I'm in Queen Books Asylum, which I didn't know them before. So once I knew which team I was in, I just looked at the blog, read their intro post, which was very comprehensive and very funny. What I really liked about it was Tammy, who's running it, is a huge panda fan. And well, I'm a panda mom too. So it was just fate. It was like instant connection. It's pandas. I'm in the panda blog. I don't even care how far I get. I'm in the panda blog.
Yeah, they have such a good, fun blog. I love it. And the reviews are really comprehensive. A lot of the bloggers do that. It's like even if you get cut in the first round, the review that I got from my group last year, which was Fantasy Book Critic, was so in-depth and it was really spot on. And I appreciated that because 300 books on 10 blogs, it's like 30 books per blog. That's a lot to read and review. For sure. How about you, Casey? What blog are you in this year?
I'm also in Queen's Book Asylum. So howdy neighbor. And I got a little imposter syndrome when I looked at the blog because I was like, these people are all so cool. But I didn't actually have a chance to like look at the other reviews they'd left. I don't know, subconsciously I was like, maybe I wait. Maybe I don't imagine what they're going to say about mine. But I was honestly floored by how transparent their process was, down to like assigning us an individual blogger. I thought that, like, as someone who kind of likes to know a little bit about what's going on generally, I really appreciated that I wasn't sitting there like, well, how am I going to know when, or who is even going to be looking? Like, I didn't have to research all of the bloggers to see what they might think of mine. I just had to look up one, and she seems cool. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they really like laid down their process really, really transparently, and that was so nice of them.
And SPFBO is a great equalizer, right? Your titles like New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller, award winners, it all doesn't really matter. It comes out in the wash because it comes down to the reviewers' opinions of how that subgenre should be written and things like that. So I actually really like that aspect of SPFBO. I felt the same way you did. Last year I opened up Fantasy Book Critic and I looked who I was in there with and I was like, oh gosh, there are 4 books in here that I've given 5-star reviews to from my blog, and that is hard. From the reviewer side of me, I think I've given like 40 total 5-star reviews over the last 3 years before I paused reviewing to focus on the authoring. And I was like, oh, the fact that 4 of my 5-star reads are in there, I don't stand a chance, but it's going to be good fun. And then it all comes down, the finalists weren't really any of those people. They were all super talented authors. And that's what SPFBO is all about, is highlighting the absolute best in the indie community, no matter how small, really. Debut novel, 50th novel. It's all the same in consideration. Tam, how about you? What blog are you in?
I'm in Before We Go blog. And
Woo!
the very first thing I did is I opened the page and looked at all of the ones that they eliminated first to see how harsh they were going to be.
Good strategy.
So I haven't looked at all of their selections yet, all of the ones that were semi-finalists, but they were at least kind to the people they rejected right away. So thank goodness.
That is a really cool strategy. Like, I want to know whether my stuff is what they hated last year before I get my hopes up. Yeah. So, Claire, talking about strategy, which blog are you in this year? And then we'll come back to that strategy question.
Yeah, I'm in Fantasy Book Critic, so that's cool that you were saying they're really like in depth. I read they had a post breaking out all of the books into the individual reviewers for the blog, and so just looking at my little pod of, I guess, like 6 or 10, I forget how many, but they were all like, "Oh, these are really cool books." I don't know how this is gonna go, but it's gonna be fun. Maybe I'll do the same strategy, like look up the ones cut first and see how nice they were about it. But yeah, for strategy, I mean, I don't think I really have one because, like I said, the books are all so varied, like even among us, like so many different kind of subgenres and just like a lot of really interesting concepts I was seeing in the in just the Fantasy Book Critic group. So I think my strategy is just kind of going to be like taking advantage of like the community aspect, like trying to do things like this when it's offered, or just trying to get to know other authors or read some of the books that I think are really cool. And if I'm cut, then cheer them on, and if by some act of grace I keep moving on, then highlight the ones that I was like, these are really cool books and you should read them. I don't know.
Yeah, the community is really the big thing. There's nothing we can do about our books, so we're not supposed to contact the bloggers whose blogs we're in, and the books are submitted. So as far as that goes, we're just like, oh well, we'll find out what we find out. But the community aspect's really as big as you want it to be. There's the Discord groups, the Facebook groups, the interviews, the written blogs, all these things that are part of SPFBO that I wasn't prepared for last year, that I was like, okay, if anybody's doing it this year, get connected with the groups and then do the things you can work into your schedule on your own, is sort of my approach this year, without trying to burn out. Because this competition is a really long competition. SPFBO goes 4 months. So
Mhm.
yeah, and depending on the blog, you can sort of see what time of year they let their book reviews out. Last year is something else that I might consider when you're like, oh, how much do I want to agonize over checking the blog? Like I'm
What's
in
my
weather
crisis
review
month?
this year, and Esme's already reading and reviewing, and put up the poll on Twitter today, like, how soon do you guys want to know? And I'm one of those authors that's like, just rip the Band-Aid off. If I'm cut, I want to know at the beginning and move on. But I know other people are like, wait. So I love that Esme took the time to like throw the poll up there. What do you guys want? But oh goodness, it's going to be a great year. We've been talking about character-driven stories and how so many of the finalists that made it in SPFBO 9 were character-driven books. So we're going to talk a little bit about your main character or characters if you have more than one. Casey, you want to kick us off with a little bit about who your main character is and like what's at stake for them? What's their dream? You don't have to tell us whether they get it.
I mean, this is dark fantasy, so no. So her name is Aura, and her dream really is just to live a simple life. So not unlike all our inner hobbit, she's basically a princess. She's heir to the largest throne on the continent, and she doesn't really want any of it, and has pretty much been told her whole life that it's more likely that her descendants are going to be the rulers and not her, so she doesn't really have to worry about anything. And then once she's forced into this marriage, she becomes queen of this other city, and she is suddenly like thrown into the deep end of, you have to learn how to rule, you have to learn how to live with this tyrant husband when you're a pacifist. Like, she's a vegetarian. Like, she literally, the thought of killing anything is like reprehensible to her, and the book starts out with him just doing an ethnic genocide on her people. So it's already like there's already a lot of like conflict, tension there, in that she doesn't agree with some of the things he's done, to put it really mildly. And so part of her arc as well is kind of having everyone around her trying to tell her that violence is the only answer in being a ruler, and she's trying to hold on to what she values most dearly, which is her more peaceful, pacifist, kind of more quiet nature. And then I wrote it to be a character-driven story. I think the plot is fine as it is, but because there are so many interpersonal conflicts within the book, a lot of my reviews have said that it's very character-driven. So I hope that as everyone else reads, they'll agree with that. But certainly, there's a lot of like inner morality driving my characters and their development.
That's awesome. And it definitely sounds like you've got action in there with, husband trying to wage wars and you're stuck married to him and everything. I'm like, ooh.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting some
He drags her along
here.
She gets to come to his sieges and hang out while he it is not a good time.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so we got our dark fantasy represented here and all the lovely drama. I call it the delicious darkness in the book. Jana, how about you with yours?
Well, yeah, so I've got Alix. And as I said, she's a history student. She's doing her master's. And it's pretty much her aspirations at the moment, at least when she starts the book, that she said she wants to work as a historian in some kind of capacity. So she's been able to see ghosts since she was a little child. The first time she saw a ghost was at the funeral of her grandmother, when she talked to this nice old lady who turned out to be the plot partner, or plot neighbor of her grandmother. So that was her first encounter. The grandmas are now besties, so they come around. And so the big thing for Alix is that she doesn't actually realize somebody is a ghost unless they run around in period dress or they display the wounds that they died from or so. So it happens, there are a couple of awkward moments where it's like, oh, looks like I'm talking to myself to everybody else. Or certain characters that they befriend or maybe fall in love with that might not be as alive as she thought.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Tension.
just a little sneak peek. And I think a lot of what I've realized with this story and also my other stories is that I often have a character that's very driven by empathy.
Mhm.
So as most people can't see the ghosts because they're invisible to most people, there's nobody who takes care of their issues, and they're still like people. And so a lot of this series is about dignity after death, which of course is a concept only in fantasy to be explored. But yeah, so she is the one, she helps ghosts. Like sometimes it's like, you know, a vandalized grave. Sometimes it's a message to a loved one or so. And there are a couple of people in her life that are sort of pushing against that and like, you know, wanting her to be more interested into the living side of the life. So there's a bit of that conflict, yeah. And it only grows as she meets more major players. There's like a ghost police coming in. There's somebody who's trying to raise the dead. So there's like, and there's a lot of like, where is she standing in all of this?
Yeah.
That's
I really
cool.
like that, the ghost police and like the thought of that aspect of dignity after death, like you said, and someone who needs to moderate it who's still living. It's like that's really cool. It's an interesting premise.
Yeah.
And a lot for her to grow in too, because then she has a whole lot to think about before it's her time too, I'm imagining.
Yeah. And there's still some action because I just can't write without action. Like, usually my urban fantasy is action packed. So yeah, things, because yeah, if they for her they're really real. Like she can even touch them, so they can also, you know, touch her, which also means they can be a danger to her. So yeah.
Wow. She has to be careful with everybody.
Yep.
Yeah. Claire, how about you and your main character?
Yeah, my main character is named Ophelia. The book is set in the 1880s in Yorkshire. So she's about 19 years old, and she is she's another really empathetic person, like Jenna and Casey were saying. I think we've got empathetic group here, maybe. But she has been kind of abandoned, or not abandoned, but definitely neglected by her family. Her father is kind of like a mad scientist type, and she's got two a lot older brothers, and it's not a super great family dynamic. But she's been, at the family house out in the woods, more or less on her own, except for, a few servants and her animal companions. And so she's got all of this like care and affection, but really has nowhere to put it except in, her one friend in the village and her animals. So when her father and brothers come back to do this kind of supernatural experiment in the cellar that they've warned her away from, she feels really compelled to investigate because they've done like bad experiments before, and she's like, I can't let this happen again. So she is investigating, and so when she discovers that it's like a vampire in the basement, she's stuck with this kind of quandary of like, okay, they're dangerous, but they're also a person. And then like, where is the line between like man and monster? And like, do monsters have souls? And like, how much can I help them without like endangering myself? Not being, foolish about the whole thing, but she just is really driven to care really deeply. And I think that's, you know, if we found something dangerous in the basement, probably the first instinct would be to run. But just because she's been in this kind of environment for so long, she's more predisposed to want to try and stay and help. And I think her compassion is probably like the thing that I aspire to. So it was cool to try to write that into her character.
I love that. It's like two different aspects of what you were talking about, Jana, with yours. If these people could physically affect you, you got to be super careful of what you're thinking and doing and how you're acting and interacting with these people. So lots of intrigue going on here, from monsters to ghosts. Tam, how about you? So we have 3 empathetic characters on the panel so far. I can just tell you right now, mine is not empathetic. So you 3 are writing more quality main characters than mine is for this year. Tam, tell us about your main character.
My main character starts at 9 years old. So the end of the first chapter, he watches his parents get killed. And so his latent abilities come to the surface and save him, get him out of there. So he's living completely on his own for the first half of the book, just hiding from the other wizards. He's spending most of that time dressed as a girl so that they can't find him. And that's how I start exploring the transness and the fact that he's got the soul of a goddess trapped in his body with him, and he is also the reincarnation of the person who killed her, makes for a very interesting dynamic when she starts becoming aware and starts communicating with him.
Ooh, talk about internal conflict.
Oh, yes.
Oh, goodness. So they're the reincarnation. And I think it's interesting being the reincarnation if they have the memories. That's going to be something I'm going to have to look for when I read it. It's like, do they have their memories? And then as the goddess wakes up, they're like, oh, no. I'm stuck with my enemy for the rest of my life.
Not yet. I don't want to give away spoilers, but it does happen eventually.
Yeah, that story ramped up fast. Like, 9-year-old, watches their parents, and they're also the reincarnation of the enemy of the goddess who is possessing them. Where's the book? This can't end well. I've got to see what happens. Oh, I love, like, the dark fantasy element comes out in me a little bit when I hear things like that. I'm like, ooh, there's that delicious darkness again.
Oh yeah, I don't write happily ever afters guaranteed. So even though I've got some romance elements, I will never say that at all.
So we have a spectrum here. So Casey, yours is pretty dark.
Yeah.
And Jana and Claire, yours sounds a little more hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, there are dark spots. I can't really get away from the darkness. Yeah. Book 3 was very dark in the end.
It kind of walks the line.
You also get to action, you get to humor and stuff. It's, you have lighthearted. You have all these historical figures in there that, doing their shenanigans, like Voltaire and Rousseau are constantly at each other's throats, and they're hilarious.
And then Tam's like, I'm not going to tell you because spoilers, but happily ever after not guaranteed. And then in mine, which is Splitting Dawn, the only person who gets a happily ever after in book 1, because it's the first volume in the series, is the villain, but not in the way you would think.
Cool.
And that was not how I had originally planned the ending, but when my beta readers, my developmental editor, got the first version, they were like, no, because there's a reverse harem subplot, and it's this epic fantasy, and it's mostly like war, and she's running away to get out of a arranged marriage she doesn't want to be in, and she ends up being captured by their enemy, and whole big adventure with vampire elves and demons and things like that. But at the end, I wanted it to be, okay, what if the villain won, but not in the way people expect? So let's throw it in there. And that was my secondary ending to correct what I had done wrong, because the developmental editor and the beta readers were like, no, she cannot end up with this person. I put my foot down. That sucks as an ending. So the ending that it has now, which is a much, much better ending, is thanks to them. So if anybody cries, it's their fault.
Yeah.
It's partially your fault. I wrote it, but it's because of them that you didn't get any happier of an ending for the main character in book 1. Can't make promises for book 2. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, RA. And I know RA working on that book for next year. So hopefully we'll see you in here next year. So overall, I'm super excited to be in SPFBOX with you guys and to read your books. My TBR list is so dead right now. I am waiting for the first sentence thread. So Tom Mock did a first sentence thread, and this year I think he's doing a newsletter of it, and I'm going to try to bring that up in SPFBO News for anybody that wants the link to sign up for it. But it is so helpful to get to go through and be like, here's all the first sentences. So I can be like, okay, these are the ones I know I want to dig into. Are you guys going to try to read any of the other books? Or are you going to just be like, I'm going to pretend it's not happening until I figure out what's going on later on?
I have to be honest, I'm currently doing really badly with reading because I just have so much to do with all the writing and editing. That's like, okay, I'm going to bed at midnight. Do I really want to read another chapter now? So I'm like getting through like one book a month. So I'm in awe of all these bloggers reading like so many books in that time, because I could never. But yeah, so yeah, sure. If something catches my eye, I'll put it on my TBR. But I don't expect to be reading any of the books during the time.
Yeah, I'm afraid that if I start reading something that somebody else submitted right away, I'm going to just compare my book to theirs, and I'm going to just curl up in a corner.
Just wait till you can breathe.
My TBR is all over there, and they're all local authors right now, and some of them have been waiting for 5 years.
I know you're pain.
You have readers too, right? So you've got readers that you're trying to make stuff for, because they're like, when is it coming out? The struggle
I've told myself like, oh, it doesn't start until June 1st officially, right? Like that's the official start date. So I've been like, okay, if you knock out some books currently on your TBR, then you can look at the SPFBO books and start reading those. It's kind of like a reward to get through my TBR.
I'm more interested in this first line thing.
So Bernard, I'm going to drop this link in the chat if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, let me pull it up on the screen. Zach Argyle's list shows all the SPFBOX books with the covers, and you can filter by KU and by audiobook. That way you can see whose is on audio. Mine last year had audio. The one this year does not.
Yeah, mine doesn't. Haven't made that much money yet. It's on the list, but hopefully at some point.
Like I know some of the contestants self-narrate, like Andrew D. Meredith self-narrates their books and stuff. I am way too nervous to self-narrate, but really Zach's list is truly amazing.
I really want to get into it. I do have a microphone. I don't have any of the others set up, but it's a time. It's like, when am I supposed to? I also work as a translator, so I'm like slowly working my way to translating my books, and like I can't narrate at the same time as well.
Yeah, I want to narrate my own books, but my kid, who is 24, just had to move back in, and so finding the time without noise, it's just not happening right now.
Yeah.
You tell them, if you're going to live here, you're going to narrate my books. Sit down. Here's your mic. Start reading.
I've tried that. It hasn't worked yet.
And pronounce the names correctly, just so you know. Oh, goodness. How about you, Casey, as far as like reading other books this year?
I have a huge TBR, and honestly, I'm gonna have to start with Janice. Like,
It's a hedgehog.
the hedgehog sold me immediately. So every other book on my TBR just got bumped out.
So, thank you.
I want to hear about Victor Hugo arguing with other dead historical
An alternative
figures.
for your son, Tam,
Right.
or your child. Act out the scenes in dramatic fashion.
I'd
Even
love
better.
to. Just give me more time to run up, please.
But no, I'd love to. Having an audiobook is on my list. I'm kind of stuck between, like, do I hold out for my dream narrators, or do I just find something that works, do the Kickstarter, and push back the second books even longer? How do I make my readers more upset? That's my forever goal. How do I let them down worse?
Yeah. There's so many options for narration, and it's been a few years since my debut came out. It came out in 2021, and when I did it, I did the ACX and did the partner split where, you keep the royalties and then you pay up front. So I paid Talon David, who's super talented, a sum up front, and then we split royalties for the next however many years it is. But then I actually, in the Indie Author Behind the Scenes playlist on my channel, I brought on a panel of narrators who talk about different ways to work with narrators, because I was like, I've only done it this one way. But I can see where a lot of people are starting to listen to their books as opposed to read them on a Kindle or read them on a paperback. However you read the books works for you. You read your book. First cat of the evening panel. We have the first hedgehog, and now we have the first cat.
She's hating this.
Calico. It's a lot to ask a calico to be on camera.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you all so much for being here, for talking about your books and about SPFBOX. Yeah, we have Cat Cam. Everybody loves cats here. But if you're watching and you want to read any of these books, including the one endorsed by the Hedgehog, you can go to the link in the description box. All of these authors' books are linked there if you're watching on YouTube. And there is the playlist with all the panels we've done. The first 5 before this one are recorded, and you can watch the replays there, or you can bookmark them to come back and watch tomorrow. So I will be back tomorrow at in the 1 o'clock hour to do another panel. And then Mike and Ro, Mike was a SPFBO 9 participant as well, and his co-anchor Ro from the Bald and Balding BookTube channel are going to be doing a couple of the panels. And those are also on the playlist, so you don't have to jump around and try to find them. They're all there. Right now there's 17 panels lined up there, so you can go through and see which ones pique your interest. But I hope to see you guys in the semifinals. I'm super excited. I wish you all the best. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.